3 days later, Zexhai no longer recognized his own fleet. The proud Velcoran warriors who had entered the Sol system with absolute confidence now moved through their ships like frightened children. They jumped at shadows, questioned every order, and whispered fearful stories about the humans in the dark corners of the mess halls. The turning point had come when Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner led 40 human Marines aboard the heavy cruiser Korthak. Zexhai had watched the boarding operation through security cameras, expecting to see a quick slaughter as his superior warriors cut down the small human force. Instead, he witnessed something that would haunt his dreams forever. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, using the vessel's own systems against its crew. Turner's Marines somehow gained access to the environmental controls and began systematically shutting down life support in sections where Velcoran troops were concentrated. "Sir," the Korthak's captain had reported with barely controlled panic, "the humans have sealed themselves into the secondary command center. They are using our own computers to lock down the ship." Zexhai had ordered immediate response teams to retake the vessel, but the humans anticipated every move. They turned off artificial gravity in key areas, causing Velcoran soldiers to float helplessly while human Marines, somehow prepared for zero-gravity combat, picked them off one by one. Turner's voice had echoed through the ship's communication system as he calmly coordinated the assault. Team 3, disable the main power conduits on Deck 7. Team 5, flood sections 12 through 15 with anesthetic gas from the medical bay. Team 2, prepare charges on the ammunition storage. The humans had turned the 800-meter warship into their weapon. They used maintenance tunnels to move unseen, emergency systems to trap their enemies, and the ship's own defensive measures to eliminate Velcoran crew members. In 6 hours, 40 human Marines had neutralized a crew of 800 trained warriors. But the worst part was not the tactical defeat. It was how the humans had accomplished it. They showed no mercy, but also no cruelty. They killed efficiently and without emotion, treating the Velcoran crew like a technical problem to be solved rather than living beings to be defeated. Turner had personally confronted the Korthak's captain in the bridge. Security footage showed the human walking calmly through blast doors that should have been impenetrable, his Marines having somehow overridden every security system on the ship. "Surrender your vessel," Turner had said in the same tone someone might use to request directions. "Your crew will be treated according to the conventions of war." The Velcoran captain, a veteran of 30 battles, had looked into Turner's eyes and saw something that broke his spirit. Not anger or hatred, but cold calculation. The human was not fighting for glory or conquest. He was solving a problem, and the problem was how to capture a heavily armed warship with minimal casualties to his own force. The Korthak had surrendered without firing another shot. Word of the capture spread through Zexhai's fleet like a plague. His warriors, who had believed themselves superior to all other species, now knew that humans could board their ships and take them with ridiculous ease. Every strange noise in the corridors, every malfunction of ship systems, every flicker of the lights became a potential sign of human infiltration. On Mars, Major Susan Wright had been demonstrating another terrifying aspect of human warfare. Velcoran ground forces had landed on the Red Planet expecting to face desperate civilian resistance. Instead, they found a carefully prepared killing field where every piece of industrial equipment had been turned into a weapon of war. Mining. Excavators became mobile artillery platforms. Cargo haulers transformed into armored personnel carriers. Manufacturing facilities produced improvised weapons and ammunition around the clock. The humans had weaponized an entire planet's infrastructure in preparation for war. Wright's tactics were simple but devastating. She used the planet's own geography against the Velcoran invaders, channeling them into narrow canyons where modified construction equipment could ambush them from concealed positions. When the aliens tried to take shelter in the human settlements, they found buildings rigged with explosives and defensive systems that turned every room into a potential death trap. "Command, this is Ground Force Alpha," the Velcoran assault commander had reported with growing desperation. "The humans have turned their cities into fortresses. Every building is a bunker, every street is a kill zone. We are taking heavy casualties for minimal territorial gain." Zexhai had ordered orbital bombardment to support the ground forces, but even that proved ineffective. The humans had built their settlements into the planet's rock formations, making them nearly impossible to destroy from space. Worse, the bombardment destroyed valuable infrastructure that the Empire needed to make the conquest profitable. The psychological warfare was perhaps the most unnerving aspect of fighting humans. They broadcast continuous propaganda on all frequencies, not threats or insults, but tactical analysis of Velcoran weaknesses. Human voices calmly discussed the best ways to disable Velcoran armor, the most effective weapons against their ships, and detailed breakdowns of Imperial military doctrine. "Attention Velcoran forces," Admiral Morrison's voice would announce several times each day. "Your shield generators are vulnerable to focused electromagnetic pulses at frequency range 747. Your armor plating has weak points at the joint connections. Your tactical formations create blind spots that can be exploited by coordinated crossfire." The humans were teaching each other how to kill Velcorans more efficiently, and they were doing it where the Velcorans could hear every word. It was psychological torture disguised as military instruction. Zexhai's own crew had begun showing signs of breakdown. His weapons officer had requested transfer to non-combat duties. His communications specialist had developed a nervous twitch whenever human transmissions came through the system. Even veteran warriors who had fought in dozens of campaigns were beginning to crack under the pressure. The final horror came when Colonel Ryan Hayes led an assault on Zexhai's flagship that should have been impossible. The human had somehow acquired 3 captured Velcoran fighters and used them to penetrate the fleet's defensive perimeter. His plan was so insane that no rational military mind would have considered it, which was exactly why it worked. Hayes had flown directly at the flagship's main hangar bay, using the recognition codes from the captured fighters to convince the automated defense systems that he was a returning patrol. Only when he was inside the ship's protective shields did he reveal his true intentions. The colonel's assault team had stormed through the hangar bay like a force of nature. They moved with precision and speed that seemed impossible for their small forms, using weapons that combined human innovation with captured Velcoran technology. Every piece of equipment they carried had been modified, improved, or completely redesigned for maximum effectiveness. "Sir?" his security chief had reported in amazement. "The humans are using our own energy rifles, but they have somehow increased the power output by 30%. They are carrying explosives that use our quantum technology, but with human timing mechanisms that we cannot disarm." Hayes and his team had fought their way to within 3 decks of the bridge before Zexhai security forces finally stopped them. But the message was clear. Humans could reach any target they chose, no matter how well defended. They could adapt any technology they captured and improve it beyond its original specifications. As Zexhai looked at the tactical display showing his battered fleet, he realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare was wrong. The humans did not fight to win territory or resources. They fought to prove that no enemy was beyond their reach, no defense was perfect, and no victory was permanent. They had turned his conquest into a nightmare from which he could not wake. The first signs that something was wrong came 3 hours into the battle. Zexhai watched his tactical display with growing confusion as human ships that should have been destroyed continued to appear on his sensors. Vessels marked as eliminated kept firing, kept moving, kept fighting with impossible determination. His sensor officer, a veteran named Mordak, ran diagnostics on his equipment for the 4th time. "Sir, the readings make no sense. The human frigate we destroyed 20 minutes ago is still broadcasting targeting data to other ships. Its main reactor should be completely dead." Through the main view screen, Zexhai could see the evidence with his own eyes. The human ship hung in space like a broken toy, its hull split open and venting atmosphere in long trails of frozen gas. Half the vessel was clearly destroyed, yet weapons fire still erupted from its remaining gun ports. "How many crew does that ship carry?" he asked. "Scans indicate a normal complement of 200 beings, sir. Current life signs show fewer than 30 survivors. 30 survivors keeping a destroyed ship fighting. Zexhai had never seen anything like it. When Velcoran ships took that much damage, the surviving crew evacuated immediately. It was basic military doctrine to preserve trained personnel for future battles. Captain Jake Rodriguez was broadcasting on an open channel from the dying frigate. His voice crackled through static and interference, but his words came through, clearly. UES relentless to all human vessels. Engine containment failing in 6 minutes. Beginning final attack run on enemy flagship. HFY felt his chest plates tighten with an emotion he barely recognized. The human captain was announcing his own death, as if it were a tactical report. No anger, no fear, just calm acceptance that his ship and crew were about to die. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the damaged human vessel is accelerating toward us. Their engine output is increasing beyond safe parameters." On the screen, the broken frigate began to move. Its remaining engines flared brighter than they should have been physically capable of producing. Pieces of the ship's hull peeled away under the impossible stress, but still it kept accelerating. "Evasive maneuvers," HFY ordered. "All batteries, focus fire on that ship. Destroy it before it reaches us." The Velcoran flagship's massive weapon systems turned toward the approaching frigate. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes concentrated their fire on the small vessel, but it continued its death charge. The human ship twisted and rolled with desperate skill, using debris and wreckage to block incoming fire. Through the chaos, Captain Rodriguez kept broadcasting tactical information to other human ships. Even as his vessel died around him, he was calling out Velcoran weapon positions, shield frequencies, and tactical patterns. His crew was turning their destruction into an intelligence-gathering operation. The impact, when it came, shook HFY's massive dreadnought like a toy. The frigate struck the flagship's portside with the force of a small asteroid, punching through 3 decks before its overloaded reactor finally exploded. Alarms shrieked across the bridge as damage reports flooded in from all sections. "Hull breach on deck 7 through 12, his damage control officer reported. "Forward weapons array offline. Shield generators 2 and 5 destroyed." But the real damage was to Velcoran morale. HFY could see it in the eyes of his crew. They had just watched a tiny human ship, crewed by dead and dying beings, inflict serious damage on their mighty flagship through pure determination. The human fleet was already moving to exploit the sacrifice. Ships that had been scattered and hiding now emerged from cover with coordinated precision. They focused their attacks on the damaged sections of the flagship, pouring fire into the weak points exposed by the frigate's death charge. Commander Lisa Park coordinated the human counterattack from her destroyer, the UES Defiant. Her ship had taken heavy damage in the opening exchange, with its main engines destroyed and life support failing in half the vessel. But she used the ship's remaining systems like a master craftsman using broken tools. "All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy flagship's port side," she broadcast. "Their shield generators are down in sections 7 through 10. Hit them with everything we have." The human vessels closed in like pack hunters surrounding wounded prey. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover, hiding behind the wreckage of their own dead to get closer to their targets. HFY had never seen such tactics. Most species treated their war dead with reverence, not as tactical resources. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, 3 more human ships are beginning suicide runs on our formation. They are overloading their reactors and targeting our heavy cruisers." HFY watched in growing horror as human captains calmly announced their intentions to die. They discussed their suicide attacks like routine military operations, coordinating with other ships to maximize the damage their deaths would cause. The UES Courage, a small patrol vessel, rammed itself into the side of a Velcoran heavy cruiser. The explosion tore a massive hole in the larger ship's hull, causing it to list heavily and lose main power. The UES Determination followed moments later, its captain steering his burning ship into the cruiser's weapon systems and disabling half its guns. Each human death accomplished something. Every sacrifice served a purpose. They were not dying in panic or desperation, but as part of a calculated strategy that treated their own lives as weapons to be expended for maximum effect. "Commander," his communications officer said with barely controlled fear, "the humans are broadcasting tactical data on all frequencies. They are sharing real-time information about our ship positions, weapon status, and damage reports." HFY realized with growing dread that every dying human ship was gathering intelligence. They studied Velcoran tactics, even as they burned, analyzed weapon patterns while their crews died, and transmitted everything they learned to the surviving vessels. The humans were turning each battle into a learning experience. His fleet had superior technology, better armor, and more powerful weapons. But the humans were learning faster than the Velcorans could adapt. Every exchange taught them something new about their enemies, while the Velcorans learned nothing except that humans were willing to die for reasons no sane species could understand. The battle raged for 8 more hours. HFY lost 2 more dreadnoughts to human suicide attacks, while several others suffered heavy damage from coordinated assaults. His crew, once confident and eager for battle, now jumped at every alert and watched the tactical display with obvious fear. The humans had lost twice as many ships, but they fought with the same desperate intensity whether they were winning or losing. Their damaged vessels kept fighting until they literally fell apart. Their crews stayed at their posts while the ships died around them. Their captains made tactical decisions that no rational military mind could comprehend. As the human fleet finally withdrew to regroup, HFY stood alone on his damaged bridge and tried to understand what he had just experienced. His forces had technically won the engagement, but it felt like defeat. The humans had hurt him in ways that mere damage reports could not measure. For the first time in his military career, Commander HFY felt something he had never experienced before. As he looked at the drifting wreckage of human ships, each one representing dozens of beings who had chosen death over surrender, he finally understood what the intelligence reports had been trying to tell him. He was afraid. Commander HFY stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His massive frame cast a shadow across the command deck as his forearms worked the control panels with practiced ease. The thick armor plates covering his body gleamed under the bridge lights, each one bearing the scars of 17 successful conquests. Today would make it 18. The Sol system stretched before his fleet like a collection of worthless rocks. 12 Velcoran dreadnoughts moved through space in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had shattered entire civilizations. Each ship was 3 kilometers long and packed with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The humans had nothing that could match even one of these vessels. His communication officer, a young warrior named Keltar, turned from his station with confusion written across his scaled features. "Commander, the intelligence reports about these humans seem strange. They claim the species is dangerous, but our scans show primitive technology and weak biological forms." HFY let out a rumbling laugh that echoed through the bridge. "Intelligence officers always exaggerate to justify their existence. Look at the readings yourself. These creatures barely reach our chest height and have no natural armor or claws. Their ships are constructed from basic metals and powered by fusion reactors we abandoned centuries ago." The tactical display showed human vessels scattered throughout the system. Most were tiny patrol craft or cargo haulers hastily converted for war. The largest ships were barely half the size of a Velcoran destroyer. Their weapons looked like toys compared to the plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes carried by the Imperial fleet. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet," announced the communications officer. "They are requesting a conference." "Already surrendering," HFY mused. "That was faster than usual. Put them through." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a human ship. The commanding officer was a female with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. She wore a simple uniform with rank insignia that meant nothing to HFY. What struck him was her posture. Not the cowering fear he expected, but a relaxed confidence that seemed out of place. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison of the United Earth Space Navy," she said in clear, measured tones. "You have entered our territory without permission and with obvious hostile intent. I am ordering you to withdraw immediately." The bridge fell silent. HFY's officers exchanged glances of disbelief. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever issued orders to an Imperial fleet. Most begged for mercy or tried to negotiate surrender terms. "Human Morrison," HFY replied, his voice carrying the authority of countless victories. "I am Commander HFY of the Velcoran Empire. Your system now belongs to us. Surrender your ships and prepare for occupation. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. Admiral Morrison smiled slightly, and Zexhai felt a strange chill run down his spine. There was something unsettling about that expression, as if she had heard good news instead of a death sentence. "Commander Zexhai," she said, "I appreciate the warning, but we must respectfully decline your generous offer. Earth and its colonies will remain under human control. If you wish to test that resolve, you are welcome to try." The transmission ended before Zexhai could respond. His bridge crew stared at the blank screen in shock. Never had a primitive species shown such disrespect to the Imperial fleet. It was almost amusing in its absurdity. "Sir," his weapons officer asked, "should we begin bombardment of their homeworld?" "Not yet," Zexhai replied, studying the tactical display. "Let them make the first move. I want to see what these humans think they can accomplish with their primitive toys." The human fleet began moving into attack formation. Their ships spread out across a wide front, using asteroids and debris fields for cover. It was a textbook defensive strategy, but one that relied on superior numbers and firepower. The humans had neither. "Long-range scanners detect approximately 80 human vessels," reported the sensor officer. "Most are small patrol craft or converted civilian ships. They appear to be armed with kinetic weapons and basic energy guns." Zexhai nodded, already planning his victory. The humans had chosen to fight rather than surrender, which meant he could claim their technology and resources as spoils of war. The Imperial High Command would be pleased with such a profitable conquest. The first human ships opened fire at maximum range. Bright streaks of energy and metal projectiles flew across space toward the Velcoran fleet. Most shots missed entirely, while those that connected barely scratched the armor of the massive dreadnoughts. It was like insects attacking a mountain. "Return fire," Zexhai ordered. "Target their largest ships first. Make it quick and decisive." The Velcoran weapons unleashed hell across the void. Plasma beams that could vaporize a city block lanced out toward the human formation. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space, each one carrying enough destructive force to level a mountain range. The darkness lit up with the fury of Imperial firepower. Several human ships disappeared in brilliant explosions. Others tumbled away with massive damage, trailing atmosphere and debris. The survivors scattered like startled prey animals, seeking cover behind asteroids and the hulks of their destroyed comrades. "Direct hits on 12 enemy vessels," the weapons officer reported with satisfaction. "Estimated enemy casualties at 40%. Zexhai watched the retreating humans with mild disappointment. He had hoped for a more entertaining fight, but it seemed these creatures were no different from any other primitive species. Fear had broken their formation and sent them running for cover. "Close to engagement range," he commanded. "Prepare boarding parties for capture operations. I want prisoners for interrogation and their ships intact for study." The Velcoran fleet advanced steadily, their massive forms cutting through space like predators approaching wounded prey. The surviving human ships continued to fire, but their shots grew more desperate and poorly aimed as panic set in. Zexhai allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Another easy victory to add to his record. The humans had shown spirit in their initial defiance, but spirit meant nothing against superior firepower and tactics. Soon their homeworld would be another jewel in the Imperial crown. As his fleet closed the distance, he began planning the occupation. The humans seemed to have decent industrial capacity, which could be useful for Imperial expansion. Their homeworld looked rich in resources, and the multiple colonies throughout the system suggested a productive population that could serve the Empire well. The thought of easy conquest filled him with anticipation. After months of travel through empty space, his warriors were eager for action and glory. This brief skirmish would barely qualify as a warm-up exercise. Looking at the scattered human forces ahead, Zexhai felt confident that by tomorrow, the Sol system would be flying Imperial banners. The humans had fought bravely but foolishly. Now they would learn what happened to species that defied the Velcoran Empire. By the 7th day, Zexhai's proud invasion force had become a broken collection of damaged ships fleeing through the outer system. What remained of his 12 dreadnoughts limped toward the edge of Sol space, trailing debris and leaking atmosphere, from dozens of wounds inflicted by an enemy that refused to let them escape. The humans had not been content with defending their territory. Once they had proven they could match Velcoran forces in direct combat, they had revealed the true scope of their preparation. Admiral Morrison's desperate defense had been a carefully orchestrated plan to study, learn, and ultimately dominate their invaders. Captain Danny Foster commanded the UES Vengeance, a ship that should not have existed. Built from the wreckage of destroyed human vessels and powered by captured Velcoran technology, it represented everything terrifying about human warfare. They took the best aspects of both technologies and combined them into something neither species could have created alone. Foster's crew was equally impossible. Survivors from a dozen destroyed ships worked alongside civilian volunteers who had never seen combat before the invasion began. Wounded soldiers who should have been in medical bays operated weapon systems with mechanical precision. Engineers, who had lost their ships, now served as gunners, using their technical knowledge to maximize damage with every shot. Velcoran Fleet, this is Captain Foster. His voice crackled across the communication channels. You are attempting to leave our territory without permission. Reduce speed and prepare to surrender. Zexhai could barely comprehend what he was hearing. A human captain, commanding a ship built from wreckage, was ordering an Imperial fleet to surrender. The audacity was breathtaking, but more terrifying was the fact that Foster had the firepower to back up his demands. The Vengeance's weapon systems were a hybrid nightmare of human innovation and Velcoran engineering. Energy cannons that should have required massive power plants operated from compact human reactors. Missile systems designed for Velcoran ships now fired human-made warheads that could penetrate any armor. Every shot was a demonstration of how quickly humans could adapt and improve captured technology. Sir, his sensor officer reported with barely controlled fear. The human ship is broadcasting our shield frequencies to their entire fleet. They know our defensive capabilities better than we do. That was when Zexhai realized the full horror of his situation. Every piece of technology his forces had lost, every weapon system that had been captured, every tactical pattern they had used, was now turned against them. The humans had not just been fighting for survival, they had been learning how to destroy the entire Velcoran Empire. Commander Helen Price led the final coordinated assault on Zexhai's retreating forces. Her strategy was a masterpiece of tactical coordination that used every lesson the humans had learned during the week-long battle. Multiple attack groups approached from different vectors, each one designed to force the Velcorans into impossible choices. If Zexhai ordered his ships to maintain formation, they would be destroyed by concentrated fire from Price's coordinated squadrons. If he scattered his forces to avoid the attacks, individual ships would be picked off by human hunters that had been stalking them for days. If he tried to fight, his damaged vessels would be overwhelmed by opponents who knew every weakness in Velcoran design. Velcoran Commander, Price's voice carried the authority of absolute confidence. You have 3 options. Surrender and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fleeing, and we will hunt you down one ship at a time. Try to fight, and we will demonstrate why that would be a mistake. Through his tactical display, Zexhai watched human ships moving with the precision of a ballet performance. Every vessel knew exactly where it needed to be, when it needed to fire, and how to coordinate with dozens of other ships for maximum effect. They had turned warfare into an art form. The humans were no longer the desperate defenders he had encountered a week ago. They moved with the confidence of predators who had studied their prey completely. Every attack was calculated. Every maneuver served multiple purposes, and every shot was placed with surgical precision. Sir, his communications officer whispered, they are broadcasting technical specifications for our ships to their entire fleet. Engine output curves, weapon recharge rates, shield regeneration times. They know our capabilities better than our own engineers. Zexhai realized that the humans had been studying Velcoran technology throughout the entire battle. Every engagement had been a research opportunity. Every captured ship had been dissected and analyzed. Every prisoner had been questioned until the humans understood Imperial technology from the inside out. The psychological pressure was unbearable. His crew members, once proud warriors of a conquering empire, now flinched at every sensor contact. They whispered fearful stories about human boarding parties that could appear anywhere. They questioned every system malfunction, wondering if it was sabotaged by invisible human infiltrators. His weapons officer had suffered a complete breakdown 2 days earlier, claiming that human voices were speaking to him through the gun-targeting computers. His security chief had requested immediate evacuation to the medical bay after seeing what he insisted were human shadows moving through sealed sections of the ship. The breaking point came when Admiral Morrison herself appeared on his main screen. She was no longer broadcasting from the bridge of her original ship, which had been destroyed on the 4th day of fighting. Instead, she spoke from the command center of a massive space station that had not existed when the battle began. "Commander HFY," she said with calm professionalism, "I want to thank you for providing us with such valuable combat data. Your tactics, technology, and strategic thinking have taught us a great deal about the Velcoran Empire." Behind her, HFY could see human technicians working with captured Velcoran equipment. They were not just studying the technology but actively improving it, modifying Imperial designs with human innovations that made them more efficient and more deadly. "Your invasion force has served as an excellent testing ground for our defensive capabilities," Morrison continued. "We have learned how to counter your weapons, defeat your tactics, and capture your ships. More importantly, we now understand how your empire thinks and fights." The Admiral's words hit HFY like physical blows. The humans had not been desperately defending their territory. They had been conducting a research project using his entire fleet as test subjects in a controlled experiment. "Every ship you have lost has been thoroughly analyzed," Morrison explained. "Every crew member captured has provided detailed information about Imperial structure, technology, and strategic planning. We now possess complete technical specifications for your entire fleet, including ships that were never built." HFY's remaining officers stared at the screen in horror as Morrison revealed the true scope of human intelligence gathering. They had not just been fighting a war. They had been participating in their own dissection, providing the humans with everything they needed to eventually defeat the Velcoran Empire. "We have also learned about your empire's expansion patterns, supply lines, and political structure," the Admiral continued. "We know which systems support your military, which colonies provide resources, and which political factions oppose the current government." The tactical display showed human ships surrounding HFY's final 3 vessels. They did not attack immediately, but waited with the patience of scientists observing laboratory specimens. The message was clear. The humans could destroy the remaining Velcoran ships whenever they chose, but they were not in any hurry. "Your mission was to conquer our system and add it to your empire," Morrison said. "Instead, you have provided us with everything we need to dismantle your civilization from within. We know your weaknesses, your fears, and your limitations." HFY felt his spirit break as he realized the magnitude of his failure. He had not just lost a battle, or even a war. He had handed the humans the tools they needed to destroy everything he had ever fought to protect. The Admiral's final words would echo in his mind for the rest of his life. "The Velcoran Empire has made a terrible mistake, Commander. You have shown us that we are not alone in the universe. But more importantly, you have shown us that we are stronger than anyone who might try to conquer us." The final confrontation took place near Jupiter, where the gas giant's massive form cast shadows across the wreckage of HFY's once mighty fleet. Only 3 Velcoran ships remained operational, and even they were more scars than hull plating. Against them stood a human force that had grown from desperate defenders to confident hunters, their ships moving with the deadly grace of apex predators. HFY's bridge was a monument to defeat. Half his control stations were dark, emergency. Lighting cast everything in bloody shadows, and the constant hum of failing systems provided a funeral dirge for his ambitions. His remaining crew moved like walking dead, their spirits broken by a week of facing an enemy that defied every military principle they had ever learned. Captain Steve Hamilton led the final boarding action against HFY's flagship. The human assault team included representatives from every branch of their military, each carrying weapons that had been modified with captured Velcoran technology. They were not just soldiers, but living symbols of human adaptability, proving that any advantage could be turned against its creators. The security cameras showed Hamilton's team moving through the ship's corridors with surgical precision. They knew exactly where to go, which systems to target, and how to counter every defensive measure the Velcorans could deploy. It was not luck or desperate courage that guided them, but complete understanding of Velcoran ship design gained through a week of careful study. "Sir," his security chief reported with the hollow voice of absolute defeat, "the humans have bypassed our lockdown protocols. They are using our own security codes to move through restricted areas." Zexhai watched his ship fall to the human assault with the detached fascination of a condemned prisoner watching his own execution. Hamilton's team did not just defeat his security forces, but demonstrated complete mastery of Velcoran technology, using Imperial weapons and equipment with greater skill than their creators. The humans had brought their own modifications to every piece of captured gear. Energy rifles that fired faster and hit harder than original specifications. Armor that provided better protection while weighing less. Communications equipment that could coordinate with human forces while jamming Velcoran signals. "Bridge team, this is Hamilton." The human captain's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "All resistance has been neutralized. Velcoran crew members who surrender will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions." The mention of human laws and customs in the middle of an alien ship capture operation struck Zexhai as both absurd and terrifying. These creatures had rules for everything, including how to treat enemies who had tried to destroy their entire species. It suggested a level of civilization that made their military prowess even more frightening. His remaining officers looked to him for orders, but Zexhai had no commands left to give. Every tactical option had been exhausted, every strategic advantage had been turned against them, and every hope of victory had been systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought with impossible determination. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss, and Admiral Morrison walked through them as if she owned the ship. She was not alone. Hamilton flanked her on one side, while a dozen human Marines provided escort. But what truly shocked Zexhai was that Morrison herself had led the final assault on his command center. "Commander Zexhai," she said, with the same calm professionalism she had shown in their first communication, "I am placing you and your crew under arrest for unprovoked invasion of sovereign territory." Zexhai studied the human admiral with new understanding. She was smaller than him, weaker in terms of raw physical strength, and equipped with technology his empire had abandoned as primitive. Yet she had defeated 12 Velcoran dreadnoughts using nothing but superior tactics, adaptive thinking, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. "How?" he asked, the word escaping his lips before he could stop it. Morrison smiled slightly, the same expression that had unsettled him during their first encounter. "You want to understand what went wrong with your invasion. That is good. Understanding is the first step toward wisdom." She gestured to the tactical display, which now showed a complete breakdown of the week-long battle. "Your mistake was assuming that superior technology and firepower would guarantee victory. You fought the war you expected to fight, not the war we gave you." The display highlighted key moments in the battle, showing how human forces had adapted to every Velcoran tactic. "We studied your formations and developed counters. We analyzed your weapons and built defenses. We captured your technology and improved it beyond your own capabilities." Zexhai realized that he was receiving a military education from his conqueror. Morrison was not gloating or threatening, but explaining exactly how his forces had been defeated with the patience of a teacher instructing a slow student. "But the real difference," Morrison continued, "was not in our technology or tactics. It was in our approach to warfare itself. You fought to conquer territory and add resources to your empire. We fought to ensure our survival and the survival of our children." The Admiral's words carried the weight of absolute conviction. "Your soldiers fought because they were ordered to fight. Our people fought because they chose to fight. Your crews followed doctrine because it was doctrine. Our crews adapted because adaptation meant survival." Hamilton stepped forward, and Zexhai could see in the human captain's eyes the same cold calculation he had witnessed throughout the battle. "Commander, We intercepted your communications with the Velcoran High Command. We know about your Empire's expansion plans, your resource requirements, and your strategic objectives. The human captain's voice carried no emotion, just factual analysis that made his words even more terrifying. We also know about your political structure, your military organization, and your technological limitations. We have compiled a complete assessment of Velcoran capabilities and vulnerabilities. Morrison nodded to Hamilton, then returned her attention to Zexai. Your Empire sent you to conquer a primitive species that posed no threat to your territory or resources. Instead, you have provided us with a complete education in Velcoran military doctrine and technology. The tactical display shifted to show intelligence gathered throughout the battle. Ship designs, weapon specifications, tactical manuals, and strategic plans filled the screen in overwhelming detail. The humans had not just captured Velcoran equipment, but had systematically reverse-engineered an entire military culture. We now possess detailed information about your supply lines, your manufacturing capabilities, your political weak points, and your expansion strategies, Morrison explained. We understand how your empire thinks, how it plans, and how it can be defeated. Zexai felt the last remnants of his warrior pride crumble as he realized the full scope of his failure. He had not just lost a battle or a war. He had handed the humans everything they needed to challenge the Velcoran Empire on equal terms. You came here to add our system to your territory, Morrison said. Instead, you have given us the tools to dismantle your entire civilization. Your invasion has transformed us from an isolated species into a potential threat to your empire's existence. The Admiral paused, letting her words sink in completely. But we are not conquerors, Commander. We do not seek to build an empire or subjugate other species. We simply want to be left alone to develop our own civilization in peace. Hamilton stepped forward again, his expression softening slightly. That is why you are going to be our messenger, Commander. You will return to your empire with a complete record of this battle and a simple message from humanity. Morrison moved to the tactical display and called up star charts showing Velcoran territory. Tell your High Command that the Sol system is now under human protection. Tell them that any future invasion will face defenders who understand Velcoran capabilities. Completely. The display shifted to show projections of human military development based on captured technology. Tell them that we are no longer the primitive species you thought you were conquering. We are now a civilization that has proven its ability to adapt, learn, and overcome any threat. Zexai looked at the projections and felt genuine terror at what the humans might become. They had improved Velcoran technology in ways Imperial engineers had never considered. They had developed tactics that exploited weaknesses no Velcoran commander had ever recognized. They had turned a desperate defense into a complete victory through pure determination and intelligence. Your transport will be ready within the hour, Morrison announced. You will be provided with complete battle records, tactical analysis, and technical specifications for everything we learned during your visit. The Admiral's final words would haunt Zexai for the rest of his life. Commander, your empire made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that physical strength and superior technology would guarantee victory over human determination and adaptability. She gestured toward the viewport, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black of space. You have learned that assumption was wrong. Now you must ensure that your empire learns it as well before they make the same mistake again. As Zexai was escorted to his transport ship, he knew that his message to the Velcoran High Command would be simple and terrifying. The humans were not just another species to be conquered.